Actually, I'm going to stop the share for a second so I have a better look at you and at the chat. How is everyone today? Very last session and you're here. Wow, even Sir Mix-a-Lot made it. Good, good, good. All right, it's already 1:11. I'm going to go ahead and get started. I want to be very clear that this is beginner Google Classroom from the very beginning. So if you're already a Google Classroom user, there probably won't be anything new that you're going to get here. So if you've been, using it for a while, I'm starting from, how to find Google Classroom, how to access Google Classroom, how to set up a Google Classroom. So from the very, very beginning. So if that's not what you're looking for, there might be a better session, but if you're new to Google Classroom and you want to start from the beginning, this is the place to be. So I want to be clear with that because I don't want anybody who's already a Google Classroom user to be here when they could be learning something else. Look at all of you coming in though. It's wonderful. If at any point today you want to chime in or you have a question, feel free to unmute your mic. I don't mind the interruption at all, or put it into the chat. Yeah, so Kimberly asked, will you be showing how to add and create new lessons? I'll be showing all of that from the very beginning. So that's the purpose of this session, is to start from, this is Google Classroom and this is how you add work to it and this is how you access it. So that's where I will be starting in just a second, kind of waiting for people to continue coming in. We have people still popping into the waiting room, so get them in here. While I wait, maybe just another minute, my name is Heidi Baines. I'm a coordinator of EdTech here at the Riverside County Office of Education. Previously was a TOSA for instructional technology, and before that, 15 years as a middle school teacher. So they're my favorites. So hats off to you middle school teachers. They're the best. I miss them. But that's kind of my past, and happy to be here at RCOE. All right, looks like the waiting room has slowed down. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. There is a slideshow, a slide deck to accompany this presentation, but there's not a whole lot in it because what I'm going to show you is mostly live. But if you take a look at the slideshow, I'll share it here on the screen as well. You take a look at the slideshow, the very last slide is actually the greatest slide in here. This is a link to Google Classroom resources provided by Google. So when we're done here today, you're always welcome to ask me questions, but if you have further questions or want to go deeper with Google Classroom, this slide will link you to Google's resources, and it walks you through step-by-step anything you would like to do in Google Classroom or any other Google tools. And so that's really the best slide in this slide deck, and the one that you will probably use again is this Google Classroom resources slide. But in the meantime, let's go ahead and get started. This is me. I already introduced myself, but this is my contact information. And so if you'd like to find me on Twitter or contact me via email, that's where you can find me. Again, this is in the slide deck. So once you have that slide link, you have access to all of this information. In the slide deck as well is a few more tips just as we get started with Google Classroom, but I'm going to show this to you live. So I'm going to take the slide show down while I show you these things live. So these are just kind of reminders if you go back to this slideshow of how to access Google Classroom and what certain settings and what certain things mean while you're there. Let me stop the share for a second. Are we ready to get started? It looks like everybody is here, and we will get going. And for those of you that just popped in, feel free to unmute and ask a question or put a question in the chat. I'm happy to answer that along the way. So here we go. Not that. We want this. All right, I'm going to keep the presentation in presentation mode. I hope that's okay with everybody because I'm going to be going back and forth between 3 different tabs. And so I want to avoid the constant up and down of the screen share or, putting my slides in presentation mode and taking them down. So I'm going to leave it here like this, and then just kind of toggle between these three tabs. All right, so from the very, very beginning, there's a couple of ways to access Google Classroom. And just like many of the things in Google and in Google Drive, there's multiple ways to do one thing. And it's really whatever your preference may be. And the way I do it may be different than the way someone else does it, but just know that there's multiple ways to get to all the tools in Google. The way I normally do it, if I am logged in to my Drive, which I pretty much always am, I go over here to what's called the waffle. And when I go to the waffle, that's my Google menu. And you're probably familiar with the waffle already and all of the different tools that are in there. One tip that someone showed me like a year ago that blew my mind and has changed my life. These are drag and droppable to reorder. So the stuff you use the most, you can move around in your menu so that they're right there when you need them. I was using Google for years before someone showed me that. And so if you are a Google user or a new user and you want to put all the stuff you use the most in the top of the menu, just drag it and drop it where you want it. Okay, so when you get to the waffle, you will find Classroom. If you don't see Classroom in this top part of the waffle, you may need to click and scroll down where there are additional options. If you've never used Classroom before, it may not be in that top list of Google tools. So you may have to search a little bit and scroll through this menu until you find it. Once you access it for the first time though, it will pop up higher in the tools that you use. I see a question in the chat. Oh, perfect. So that's one way to access Classroom is just go to your waffle and find it there. And the more often you use it, the easier you will find it in these first few choices. The other way you can access it, and this actually goes for all Google tools, is you can type in Classroom, mine pops up automatically, but classroom.google.com, and that will take you into Google Classroom. So either through the waffle or through classroom.google.com, and that will get you to your Google Classroom homepage. Okay, how are we doing? Let me do a check-in. So far, so good. Yep. I wish I could see all of you while I also have my screen shared, but I can't. Okay. So when you get into the waffle or into Google Classroom, you may first come to this screen. And I'm not sure if you're working along with me or just listening right now, but this might be a reminder to you. If you're going into Google Classroom for the very, very first time, it may ask you if you're a student or a teacher. Be sure to choose teacher. Sometimes people mistakenly choose student. And what that does is it makes you a student so that you can't create classes or work in Google Classroom as an educator. It can be fixed, but it's usually your IT department that has to fix that. So if you are truly a brand new user and have never logged into Classroom before, you will probably get this screen. Make sure that you choose I am a teacher, because again, that will give you all the teacher tools that you will need in Google Classroom. Okay, let me check in on the chat. Got it, okay. I've seen that happen quite a few times to new users, and it's frustrating to them because they try to go, use the new teacher skills that they've learned, but they can't make a class because they're in as a student. So again, just be sure to choose I'm a teacher. And then I'm going to go live and show this again. But when you get into Google Classroom, you'll see a little plus sign. And it's that plus sign that lets you either join a class or create a class. And we're going to look at that right now. But it's kind of your key to getting started with Google Classroom is first thing you do is create a class. And then once the class is created, you can put the assignments in it. But job one is creating a class. So when you're in Google Classroom. So I have a lot of classes created here, but here we are. If you're a brand new user, this will be empty. I just have a lot here because I've made a lot of Google Classrooms, but a new user, this will be empty, but you are going to create something to put there. You'll click this plus sign and you see those are your choices, right? Join or create. As a teacher, you will create a class. And it's really like a 30-second process. Once you get to this point and you click that plus sign, it's as easy as the name of my class. You can put in all this information, but you don't have to. And you click create. It's going to take a second. And that's all there is to creating the class. And so now you'll see I'm back on my dashboard, and I'll show you how I went back and forth. And I have my sample class. So to create a class, it's simply log into Google Drive, hit the plus sign, and create class. That's all that you have to do there. Okay. All right, doing all right? And again, I'll remind you this at the end, but in Google's resources, these are all laid out step by step as well. So know that that information is available to you. I'm going to look at my sample Google Camp class that I set up so I can show you a few things in the class. But once I have my class on my Google Classroom homepage, to access that class, I'll simply click on it and it will open. Depending on what grade or what subject or how you're using Google Classroom, you might have multiple classes. If you're a secondary teacher, right, you might have 5 or 6 Google Classrooms, one for each of the periods that you teach, or one for each of the preps that you teach. If you're elementary, you might have one Google Classroom, and I'll show you how to organize it by subject so you can have all the different subjects that you teach as an elementary teacher. It'll vary depending on what you teach or how you're using it on, how many classes you set up or how you set your class up. So I'm going to kind of give you the general structure, and then you can kind of think through what would work best for you. And if another time you want to kind of go back and forth with me on what would work best for your needs, I'm happy to do that individually as well. Once you set up your class and you open it, it looks like this. So this is my Google Camp sample class. You'll notice first thing, the name of the class that I'm in is up here on the left. So it says Google Camp 2021. Anytime you see these 3 lines or 3 dots in Google, you know that it's a menu of some type. So in this case, this menu is what takes me back to other classes. So if I'm teaching multiple classrooms, these are all my Google Classrooms, this is where I go to other ones. So if I'm in one and I want to go to a different one, it's in this menu. So this is how you toggle between classes. The other thing you see on the first page are some choices along the top. You've got stream, classwork, people, and grades. And then over on the right, you have a little cog for settings. Oops, I didn't mean to open that. I'll show you that though. You have settings, and then you have your traditional Google menu. So if you want to leave Classroom and go to Jamboard or Forms, you can do that here as well. You always have that option in your Google tools to go into different tools from that waffle menu. So the stream is like the home page. So here I am on the stream, and there's a few things you can do from here, but most of your work is going to take place in the Classwork tab. But we're going to go in order and just kind of review the stream tab so that we can see what's here. So first thing you can see is I've got a theme going here for Google Camp. In order to select a theme, it's right there. And sometimes that's hard to see. If you don't know it's there, you might not notice it. But they have these preloaded themes that you can use to just fancy up your classroom. Let's see. Do they not have a baseball? Oh, Google. All right, we'll put a bike up instead. But if I want to change themes, I just click on this new theme, select it, and it'll change the banner on the top. So that's an easy way to change the theme of your class, or to make it match your subject matter, or however you like to use that. There's lots to choose from. You can explore that. If you want to do something custom, you can do upload a photo. And I'm not going to do that right now, but you can upload a custom photo if there's something else that you would like in the banner of your Google Classroom. And then a few more things here. So at the top, the way you join a Google Classroom, again, there's multiple ways to join a Google Classroom, but one of the ways to join a Google Classroom is by this class code. After a year of distance teaching, you're probably familiar with the class code process, right? You give the kids a code and they enter that to get into whatever tool that you're using with them. So in Google, there's a code that's associated with every Google Classroom. But the nice thing is there's this nice display button. And so if I am projecting my screen, either face-to-face in the classroom or online, you can project this code nice and large to the students or to whomever is using it. And then they can type this code in to join the class. It is case sensitive. So if you find that you or your students are unable to join a class with a code, one of the reasons might be that it's case sensitive. So you need to double check those capital and small letters. Another way to help students or to have people join your classroom, and this would be easier if you have younger students or students that have trouble typing in that letter and number code, you can copy the invite link. And that's right here. And when you copy that, whoops, I can put that in the chat, or you can put that on a document for your kids or whatever other management system you have to communicate with them. And when you click on that, that will automatically join you to the Google Classroom. Kimberly asked a good question. Does the family have to have a Gmail, or will it work with other email accounts? So two answers for that. If you have Google in your district and you're using your district Google account and the students all have district Google accounts, they will link up in Google Classroom. So you shouldn't have any problem having students from your district or teachers from your district join a Google Classroom that is also from your district. If you're working with people outside your district, or you want parents to join and not students, there's kind of a lot of scenarios here. So Kimberly, you and I, we could talk separately and go through it. They do have to have a Google account, and they can use a personal Google account. But the way that some districts set it up, how do I say this? A personal Google account will work, but sometimes one district from another district won't work together. So for example, here at the county office, we work with multiple districts. And so sometimes we have districts that can very easily join our Google Classroom, and sometimes we have districts that can't, and it's just based on different settings. And so in that case, we ask those people to use their personal Google accounts to join our Google Classrooms. Is that more information than you wanted, or did that answer the question? So it's kind of a yes and no.
No, question. It's really good. Thank you.
Okay.
We usually have to send to our parents, because I deal with the littles, and the parents sign in. So I just wanted, as I'm setting up the emails, it shows the parent's name, not the student's name.
Yeah, one thing you can do too, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this piece, but I'll show it. So in the people, you could have your students that are part of the district, as the members of the Google Classroom, but you can add in their guardians, and then the guardians would get contacted too. But I know it gets a little bit complicated with the little ones, so we could talk through that a little more, Kimberly. And I can tell you how other people do it as well. But I get what you're saying with the little, someone to log in and manage that information for them, right? Yeah.
And I'm sorry, where did you click to get that pop-up code?
So it's this tiny little display icon right here. Let me circle it nice and large. right under where it says Google Camp 2021, if I click it, it pops up. And if I click it again, I get the invite link. How am I on time? Okay. So back to the stream. So also in the stream, we have a stream of information. And think about this as kind of like social media. This is the order of things that have been going on in the class. So you can see that I've been in here posting things in the classroom. It's just kind of a summary of what, in this case, the teacher has been doing in the classroom. So if your students come in, they can see what's happened recently. You can also put announcements here. And then it will go to everyone in the class, or I can just have it appear on certain students' screens. And so if you want to put a message up that everyone sees right when they get to the classroom, or if you want to put a message up and I just want one person to get it, I can do that as well. So now none of you are going to get this message because it's only going to go to my friend who helped me test some of this. So that's just going to Gabrielle. If I want to send another message to everyone, this will go to all students. Some teachers use this a whole bunch. Some don't use it much at all. Some put one message here and pin it and just leave it there. It's really up to you how useful you find the stream or not. But it is the first thing that students come to. So having a little something there, even if it's just your contact information, is kind of handy for students and parents. You might choose to turn off students' abilities to comment here. You'll notice that right now, people can write on this screen, my students included. And so if that's something that you would prefer students don't have access to immediately, you'd like them to not be able to write on the first page of your Google Classroom, this is when we go to settings. So let me pause for just a second before I kind of move into another menu. Let's see how you guys are doing. Doing all right? Okay. So once I'm here, I've kind of changed my theme and I've got some things set up. I want to look at my settings, and the settings are in this cog. And in here, I can see some details and set up some things that how I want them to function in the class. So this is called Google Camp 2021. Again, the invite codes are in here. So if I wanted to grab the code here and send it to people, I can do it. If I want to find the class code here, I can do it. I can also display it from here. So it's, again, kind of all those things that are on the first page show up right here with the invite codes. If I want to turn them off and I don't want people to join with the code, or I want to turn them off in that moment and cancel that code, I can turn them off, or I can reset the code and change it. So if you've got some jokesters that somehow have gotten your code and are trying to make trouble, you can change it, and that's where you do that, is in the settings. But this part is the part I wanted to look at. So you have some choices here. So in the stream, it automatically defaults to students can post and comment. I was a middle school teacher, so at least to start, I would probably change this to only teachers can post and comment, at least to start, until you've established those norms in your classroom, and until you kind of have some rapport with the students and you can predict what they might write. I don't think I would have that open on the first day of school. I know I would have had some 8th graders who found some things funny to put on that screen that might not have been so funny. So I would turn that off, but that is your personal preference. I'd probably turn it on eventually as I got to know my students, but initially I would probably turn that off. There's also some notifications. You can decide if you want notifications to come to you, or if you want those condensed into one email, or if you want everything. That's really up to you. And then some additional settings here, along with grading. And I'm not going to go too deep into grading, but you can see, you're probably blocked by my screen, huh? But you can see that you can do weighted grades, you can do grade categories, you can decide if you want your students to see an overall grade or if you don't. I know some teachers use Google Classroom as a way to deliver and collect assignments, but the overall grade comes from other sources as well in the student information system or in the grading system. So they don't have a grade in Google Classroom because it might not necessarily match their real overall grade. Does that make sense? So you may be pulling in, grades from anyway. So you can just not have an overall grade. I know in my son's classes, he didn't have overall grades because what was done in Google Classroom was combined with things that were done outside of Google Classroom. And so it didn't work. So you can decide that this is your only grading system, or you can just turn that off so there's no confusion between what's being done in Google Classroom and combined or not combined outside of Google Classroom. So this window area that I'm in, how did I get here? So over on the far right of the screen, I'm going to save this so I can show you. Over on the far right is this cog, and this is where all the settings are. So this is where you'll go to find that information. And again, that Google Training Center that I'll remind you the link at the end, it walks you through this step-by-step as well with pictures and everything that you'll need. All right, so now we're going to get to the meat. I think I have enough time to get to the meat of Google Classroom, and that is in Classwork. So when I go to this tab, now you're going to see where all the magic happens. So this is where you assign work. This is where students click to access work. This is where really everything is happening in Google Classroom, is under the Classwork tab. And you'll see that I have it set up in 3 different, what we call topics, which I'll show you in just a second. So I have tutorials. I have a part called questions, and I'll show you what that is in just a second as well. And then I have slideshows. And so a user would go to this Classwork tab and see just what I'm seeing and see it organized this way. On the left, users can click through each of the different topics. So you don't have to sort through a big line of information. You can go topic by topic. You can see the potential here for organizing classwork. People do it different ways. It really depends what works for you. I've seen it done by topic and then dates. I've seen it done by week. So this is everything we're doing in this week. I've seen it done by unit. Just multiple different ways to organize your class. And so as you start to think about using Google Classroom, think about how you would organize it in a way that's easy for you to manage, and in a way that's easy for the students to access information you want them to find. Because you can imagine after many, many weeks or after a year of information put into Classroom, you need to have it sorted into topics. Otherwise, it's just going to be one big mash of information, and it'll be impossible to find anything. So think about that structure and what would work well for you, and how you would set it up to make life easy for yourself and for your students. And if you're interested in seeing more of those setups, I can show you more classrooms that I have in different ways that I have them set up. But to put an assignment in Google Classroom, you start with the Create button. And when you click Create, you get several types of assignments or several different types of activities that you might want to create. So for this first one, I'm actually going to choose material, because if I choose material, this is just something that I want the students to have access to. There's no points assigned. There's no due date assigned. This is just I want you to have access to this slideshow. I want you to have access to this reading. I want you to watch this video. There's no actual input or assignment due by the student. It's just something you want available to them. So this is just a material. And I can describe it, or I can leave that blank. I can mess with the formatting if I want, but I'm not going to. And then I'm going to click add. And I can add this material from my Google Drive. I can add a link to a website or something else that I'd like them to access. It can be a file that you have. If you have a bunch of Word documents or PDFs or things like that, if you get a link to them or I'm sorry, attachment from your device, if they're living on your computer, you can attach them in a file, just like you might in an email, so that the students will have access to that. Or you can attach a YouTube video. So you can click on that YouTube there and put a YouTube video into the material so that all of the students can access it. So again, those are the choices. So I'm going to, Google's getting my feedback. I'm going to add something from my Google Drive. So it'll open up my drive. It's running a little slowly today. We'll just wait. Okay, once my drive opens, so drive is open and I'm going to I'll add Mike's presentation here, getting started with Google Sheets. So this is what's in my drive. I clicked on this slideshow that I want to add. I'm going to click insert. And now I get a preview of what is here and what I'm going to post for the students. Nothing's posted yet. This is just the preview of what I'm going to post for them, okay? Over on the right, I have some choices. If I have multiple classes, I can assign this to multiple classes. So I can click any of these Google Classrooms that I already have, and this assignment would go to any or all of them that I choose. So that's nice, especially if you're a secondary teacher and you're going to have 5 classes, but they're all getting the same document. You can assign it one time and it'll go to all 5 or all 6 of those classes. And you just have to check which ones you want it to go to. I can also decide that this goes to, oh, hey, Norma, this could go to everybody or just certain students. So maybe there's some differentiation you want to do or some individualization that you want to do. You can pick and choose who gets what if you don't want it to just go to all students. And then the topic. So in this case, I've already created some topics. So I'm going to call this, I'm going to put this in slideshows. But if I didn't have a topic already for slideshows, this is where I create it. And so this is where you start that organizational piece. So if I wanted to call this something else, we'll call it slideshow 2. Or how about 2? There we go. And then that creates a topic. So that's kind of the bread and butter there of organizing Google Classroom, is putting it under a topic. And then you hit post, and then it'll appear in your Google Classroom. Before I hit post, I'll show you a couple more things. You can schedule it to post at a certain time. So if you're someone that plans far ahead and you want to schedule things to come up on certain days, you can do that. You can save it as a draft. Let's say you start working on something that you're going to assign, but you're not quite done with it, or you get interrupted, right? Because that never happens. So you get interrupted in the middle of working on this. You can save a draft and come back to it later and complete that assignment and then post it. Generally, I know when I was in the classroom, I wasn't that far ahead in planning because things always change so much. So scheduling a whole lot probably wouldn't work for me. But if you want to schedule in the morning for that whole day, so things, pop up as the day goes along, that'd be a easy and nice way to keep yourself organized during the day. So I'm going to post, and you'll see I have a new topic. This is called slideshow 2. This is my sample material, and there it is. And now students can access that. If I don't like that there, I can drag and drop these into different order. So if you find that you'd like to reorder things once you assign it, or you'd like to reorder topics, It's just drag and drop to move things around where you want them. All right, let me pause for just a second. Looks like we're good in the chats. We're doing all right. Yeah, seeing some heads. Okay. So the next one that you're going to use the most is assignment. When you get to assignment, it looks exactly the same as material, except you have some additional features here. So I'll say sample assignment. I have the same choices. I'm going to decide that this is going to be, we'll do YouTube. I'm going to do something random. I don't advise doing this with your students. Search YouTube before you have it on a large screen because you don't know what will come up, but this is pretty safe here. So we're going to attach this poodle video. So I'm asking my students to watch this video, and then I put instructions. Please summarize this video. Or maybe you have a document you want them to complete that goes with it. But you know, whatever the assignment is, they're going to watch this video and summarize it. It's going to all students. And then I can decide if it has points or if it's ungraded. And I can change it. Oops, here. I can have it have a due date or not. I'm not going to have a due date on this. I am going to assign it a topic. I'm going to create a topic. And it's going to be ELA. This is going to be English Language Arts. You can attach rubrics. That's for a later time. That's not a beginner session, but you can attach rubrics. And this is all in that Google Help Center that can walk you through doing that. And depending on the type of Google account that you have, it does have a plagiarism checker built in as well. And so after you kind of get your feet wet with Google Classroom, check out some of these more intermediate tools because they can be really helpful in what you're doing and, you know, speeding up your grading and giving timely and informative feedback to the students. So there is a place for rubrics and there is a plagiarism checker built in. And I'm going to go ahead and assign this. And you'll see now it's assigned under ELA. I have my sample assignment. And you'll notice as a teacher, I love this piece. I can see that it's been assigned to 3 students. I can see that no one has turned it in yet. But as students start to turn in their assignments, this number changes. And so you can really easily go in and see exactly who has done the assignment and exactly who hasn't, because you just click on the number and it tells you who has turned it in and it would tell you who hasn't, right? And so, oops, there's only 3 people in this class. Likewise, once they start the assignment, it'll start to, you'll see a preview here on this back end. So if you give them a Google Doc to work in, if they're supposed to write an essay, let's say, for example, you will see little thumbnails of their essays here that you can actually click in and give feedback on. So even before they turn it in, you have the ability to see what they're working on and send them messages of encouragement, or maybe give them some sentence frames to help them write. And this is all ELA focused, but you have access to what they're doing while they're doing it, which as an educator is huge, because I remember, you know, teaching social studies and you get this big assignment turned in, but I hadn't seen it for the weeks that they were working on it at home, right? And had I been able to do that, I could have given them much better feedback before I got it and it was done incorrectly, right? And so the ability to see work as they're doing it and before they turn it in can really help you give them feedback along the way so that you're getting the results that you want and they're getting the feedback that they need before it's too late. I see some chat. Let me check in here. Yeah. So Norma said she hadn't seen that, but you will see it if you give them a slideshow or something to work on, a Google Doc. You can see it in the time that in the real time that they're working on it. And, it could be something as little as, hey, I see that you haven't started the assignment yet. Is there something I can do to help you get started? What do you need from me? Or, what's missing? So just to be able to identify right away who is already working, a really useful feature. Okay. You can see the instructions. I have it on that students can comment. So if my students want to ask questions here, I could see them. Things that are under class comments are going to everyone. So students can ask questions here, and then I could answer them. And that would appear under the assignment. All right. Doing all right? Okay, another thing in here. You saw down here, I had something called questions. And Norma, I see you joined the class. So if you're still in the class, you're welcome to answer the questions. But what you can do is you can create a question. And you can ask, right? You can ask kind of whatever you want, and you can have choices here. You can have short answer or a multiple choice. So if I want to quickly survey my students, if you're in the lunchtime session, Tori was talking about these check-in questions, how are you feeling? How are you doing? That's something you can do in Google Classroom as well, right? I can say, it was great. It was so-so. It was terrible. I didn't eat, right? And now my students will be able to answer that question for me. And so whether it's a quick survey or whether you want to ask, multiple questions, you can ask for a longer answer or, right, just a quick multiple choice. So whether it's a check-in or we ask our students all kinds of questions, right? But you can ask questions directly in Google Classroom and students can answer them as well. Oh, thank you. So lunch was so-so. I'm guessing that was Norma. So I can see that that was Norma and lunch was so-so. Thanks, Norma. And I will tell you, you get 100 on that. Since you can see this, you saw Norma turned it in. I gave her 100% on her answer. And then I click return and Norma will get that back. I'm getting short on time. So that is, let me go back here. So that is materials, assignment, and asking a question. And those are kind of the three that you'll use the most. The last one you'll use probably quite frequently that I won't get deep into today because it's a little more explanation than for a beginner session, but please explore it because it's valuable as you get your feet wet, or if you want to meet with me again and we can go through this in a small group or a one-on-one. You can make a quiz in Google Classroom. And what that does is it creates a Google form. And then your students can take this quiz, turn it in, and it automatically connects in Google Classroom. I don't know how familiar you guys are with forms. I know there were some form sessions throughout Google Camp, but if you know about forms or you've learned about forms before, it works the exact same. So you would create it, right? And again, creating an answer key and all this to make a quiz in forms is a whole nother session, which I'd be happy to do. If you want to schedule a time with me, I'd be happy to go through how to do this. But it allows you to issue a quiz in Google Classroom. It can be self-graded. And so once they turn it in, the grade goes directly to you. You don't even have to grade it if you set it up as multiple choice. Really handy way for a quick assessment if you need to get a temperature on what your kids are, how your kids are doing or what they're learning. You can build it right directly in Google Classroom, and that will work in conjunction with one another. You can also build a quiz in a form outside of Google Classroom and then attach it, and that works as well. But that's why that feature is there, is if you would like to create a quiz directly in Google Classroom on a Google form, you can choose quiz assignment, and then that will be available to your students as well. I see some chat questions. So Kimberly said, can the whole class see the others' comments? Yes, they can. And so when you set up questions, you can set it up that students can reply to one another or they can't. So you can take that off if you don't want them to reply. In the questions, the student answers, unless you give students the ability to see each other's answers and reply, will only go to you. But anytime you see, so that, if I can replicate it here, anytime you see like the class comments, where was that? Then yeah, that's something that everybody can see. So like where it says class comments, if you have that open for students to be able to write in comments, then everyone will be able to see what they write. So you may want to avoid that, or, you know, really educate your kids on the digital citizenship piece of not doing inappropriate things there. But in class comments, yes, they can see it, but you can turn off the ability for them to be able to comment. So, and that would just be only teachers can post and comment.
And then they could actually comment here in Zoom by
Yes.
being teacher only. Okay. Just
Yeah.
Confidentiality and for their.
Yeah. Who I can't, who is that? Who's talking? Because I can't see the.
Kim.
Oh, Kim.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Kim, if you wanted to look at it more deeply, there's some ins and outs of what teacher sees versus what student sees. So in the question assignment, when you set that up, it may be that answer only goes to teacher. So you can set those up so that the whole class doesn't see the answers, or you can set it up that students can reply in like a discussion board thread so that they do see each other's. Or you can set it up where students see a summary of the answers not associated with people's names. So there's a few different settings there that I can either go through with you, or you can look at in the Google Training Center to see what works best in which scenario, because it's going to be different for everybody, and it might be different from assignment to assignment. And so just be mindful when you set things up, look for, okay, do I want the students to see this? You know, check the box or uncheck the box. There's kind of some ins and outs, and probably some trial and error on what's going to work for you as far as students commenting on things.
Great,
I want to show, sorry, go ahead.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. I want to show one more thing before my time runs out. And I only have 2 minutes, but it's important for security, because you just mentioned security and privacy, but it's this Google Meet link. And you're looking at the settings page right now. This is where you can turn it off or on. So you see right now, I have my Google Meet link is visible to students. That means students can click on that and use that link to access your meetings. And you probably want that. But if you need to change this link, let's say your link's been compromised, or, you know, for whatever reason, you've got some characters that are giving your link out and you need to change that, you can change it here. You can reset it. Or if you'd like it to just not be visible to the class all the time, so they can't just copy it and send it to someone else, you can turn that off so that's not available in the big banner of your Google Classroom. And again, that varies by teacher, by district, really depends on your needs. But if you have a need, let me show you where it is. If you have a need to alter or change or hide this Meet link, it's right here. I can see this right now because I own this classroom, but you see this little eyeball that's crossed out? That means that like Norma can't see it. And so the students can't see it if you hide it. And again, there's scenarios that you might need to hide it. So it's good to know that that's in the settings and that you can hide that if you need to. See, yeah, thanks, Norma. So Norma can't see it anymore. Okay, last thing, just as a reminder, because I'm literally at 2 o'clock and I want to be respectful of your time and your summer. But here in the slideshow, and I'll put it in the chat one more time before you go. Again, if you click on this link, this turquoise link, it will take you to all of the Google Classroom things that you might want to do. Joining as a student, inviting students, assignment, like all the things broken down topic by topic that you might want to know in Google Classroom. So be sure to visit this, because I kind of fire hosed you with a bunch of information to get you started. But as you go back in and get started on your own, you may want to use this site to help you better understand what you're setting up in Google Classroom. All right. Let me drop that in the chat one more time. So with that, I will say thank you so much for joining. Hope you got enough to get started. Thank you, Lisa. If you need anything, or you would like to reach out to me, or you would like, some help this summer, I know there's just a few weeks left of summer, but if you are setting stuff up and maybe you can't reach out at your district yet, feel free to reach out to me. I'm here all summer and happy to walk you through Google Classroom or set something up or go through different scenarios of what you need, because it's kind of specific to what you teach and what you're doing. So please don't hesitate to reach out. I'm happy to meet with you or you in a small group and help you get started and review information that you might forget after this. So thank you so much. Appreciate you. Hope you had a great Google Camp. And I hope you have a wonderful new school year. And we'll see you next time. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Norma. No, I love the intrusion. It's perfect. Thanks, everybody. Oh, here's Sarah. My contact information is on the slideshow if you don't get it here, but here's my email. Just send me an email. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.